The sands of the Sahara have swallowed up people, animals, and entire cities for centuries. This is the largest desert in the world, and those who were careless enough to get lost in the endless sandy plains disappeared forever. It is known that in the ancient world, entire armies tried to cross this desert and were never seen again. Only now, with the help of modern technology, are people beginning to understand the Sahara's secrets. There's a surprisingly large number of them. Welcome to the video. The Lost Fortress. Satellites allow researchers to look under the canopy of the most dense jungles and dive into the heart of the most inhospitable deserts. And all this without even leaving a comfortable chair. In 2010, satellites discovered the remains of more than 100 fortresses belonging to the ancient Garamanta people in Libya. This area was well mapped during exploration for oil, when representatives of oil companies were looking for places for well drilling. This meant that archaeologists were able to scan satellite images for the presence of characteristic features of the walls. Later, researchers were able to see firsthand that the structures were actually built by Garamantes. The expedition had to stop because of the revolution in Libya when Muammar Gaddafi was overthrown. During the heyday of the Garamantes, from about the 2nd century BC to the 7th century AD, the territory on which they lived was already incredibly arid. To cultivate the land, they built underground channels that provided water from ancient reservoirs. When those water sources dried up, the fields dried up, and the Sahara buried the remains of fortresses and villages under the sand. Meteorites and craters. Earth has always been bombarded by meteorites from space. Most of them burned up without a trace in the atmosphere, leaving nothing but a streak of light in the sky. Others reached the Earth and had a truly devastating effect. Since most of these disasters occurred in the distant past, craters left by meteorite impacts are often ignored because erosion and plant growth obscure them. However, in the deserts, you can still see the scars from the blows of visitors from space. For example, the 45-meter-wide Camil crater in southwestern Egypt is the crash site of an iron meteorite about 5,000 years ago. Fragments of the meteorite itself were found scattered everywhere around Camil crater. It was broken by a terrible impact on the Earth. And this is not an isolated discovery. Almost a fifth of all meteorites are found in the Sahara. Only the snowy landscape of Antarctica is more prolific for discoveries of ancient meteorites. Libyan desert glass. Even when the remains of meteorites and their craters have disappeared after thousands of years, other remnants of cosmic collisions may remain. About 29 million years ago, a meteorite hit the Earth. This released enough energy to melt a fairly large area of the Libyan desert, turning the sand into sheets of thin green glass. The crater left by this explosion has not yet been found, but there is still a lot of desert glass, which can be found even in very unexpected places. When Howard Carter opened the tomb of Tutankhamun, he found among the treasures a jeweled breastplate belonging to the dead pharaoh. Embedded in its center was a sacred scarab beetle carved from green glass. The Egyptians probably had no idea about the origin of the glass they used. But interestingly, another artifact was found made of otherworldly material. One of the daggers in the grave was created from meteoric iron. Nabta stones. Wherever water is found in the desert, there is always life around it. When people lived near Nabta Playa in southern Egypt 9,000 to 6,000 years ago, this area was subject to annual floods, which resulted in the formation of a lake. According to theory, the tribes came to this place to feed and water their animals. These people not only survived here, but also developed a unique culture of sacrifice. Archaeologists have found the remains of cows, sheep, and goats in a ritual burial. About 6,000 years ago, people in Egypt installed large stone blocks in a circle. Scientists believe that this stone circle, which is 1,000 years older than Stonehenge, is the earliest known astronomical structure. There is still debate about what exactly this circle indicates, but one researcher claims that it coincides with the location of Orion's belt, which was visible 6,000 years ago. The Lost River. The Sahara Desert has not always existed. As the climate has changed over millions of years, the boundaries of the sands have also changed. Even scientists who searched for the evidence of the existence of water on Mars in ancient times study the history of the Sahara. Research has shown that a river with the 12th largest catchment area in the world once flowed out of the Sahara. The remains of this river were, according to legend, seen when an underwater canyon was discovered off the coast that had been breached by the river's current. River deposits were also found in unexpected places. The presence of the lost river, which was named Tamanrasset, was finally confirmed using a satellite. Researchers continue to search for further information about the reservoir, which may have dried up just 5,000 years ago. Whales. It's not only rivers that have been discovered under the sands of the Sahara. Over a very long period of time, what was once the ocean has become one of the driest places on Earth. In Wadi al-Hitan, Egypt, you can find evidence of the long-vanished Tethys Ocean. This place, known as Whale Valley, is one of the best places to find whale fossils. When the ancestors of modern whales died at sea 37 million years ago, their bodies were covered with a thick layer of sediment. As the Earth's crust lifted, their former home returned to Earth. Today, paleontologists study skeletons 15 meters long, as well as creatures that whales lived with in the sea. The teeth of very large sharks were also found near the whale bones. Machimosaurus rex. The seas have always been home to monsters. About 120 million years ago, a 9-meter-long crocodile, Machimosaurus rex, lived in what is now the Sahara Desert. Machimosaurus rex is the largest crocodile that lived in the ocean. The area where this reptile once lived was probably a huge lagoon extending to the Tethys Ocean. There, Machimosaurus hunted sea turtles and fish. This reptile probably devoured the corpses of larger creatures. It may seem ironic that so much marine life has been found in the Sahara, but in fact, paleontologists make so many discoveries there precisely because the desert is extremely inhospitable to all life. Given that there are no plants or soil, scientists can often find amazing things right under their feet. Spinosaurus. Continuing the theme of marine discoveries made in the desert, it is worth mentioning Spinosaurus, the largest predatory dinosaur ever discovered by scientists. The 95-million-year-old Spinosaurus, aka Spinosaurus aegypticus, was about 7 meters tall and 16 meters long, larger than the more famous Tyrannosaurus rex. Spinosaurus was not at all like its more famous competitor. It had a huge sail made up of bones sticking out of its back, as well as a number of other features that put scientists in a deadlock. Spinosaurus is now believed to be the only known semi-aquatic dinosaur, as the bones of the original dinosaur discovered were destroyed during World War II. It wasn't until 2014 that other types of fossils were discovered in Morocco, and researchers were finally able to study Spinosaurus. One piece of evidence that indicates that Spinosaurus partially lived in water is its long, flat legs, which are well adapted for rowing. Its nostrils were positioned high on its snout so that the dinosaur could breathe while mostly underwater. Surely the sight of the huge sail on its back approaching was about as terrifying to the inhabitants of the ancient seas as the shark's fin is today. World War II Curtiss P-40 Kitty Hawk fighter. On 28 June 1942, Sergeant Dennis Copping flew a damaged Kitty Hawk P-40 to a British base in the desert for repairs. Somewhere in the middle of the flight, he disappeared. It wasn't until 2012 that the remains of the plane were discovered when an oilman accidentally stumbled upon them. The aircraft remained mostly intact. It was taken to the El Alamein Museum where it was restored. Interestingly, no trace of Dennis Copping was found. His fate is another mystery held by the Sahara. Gobero's skeletons. Paul Sereno had already appeared on this list as he was part of the team that found the Spinosaurus fossils in 2012. It was on one of his trips to collect dinosaur bones that he accidentally found the largest human cemetery in the Sahara. The Gobero site in Niger was inhabited about 10,000 years ago and was once covered in lush greenery. The remains of fish, crocodiles, and other animals were mixed with the bones of people. Many of the discoveries were just sticking out of the sand. Over 2 years of excavation, about 200 human burials were found from 2 separate periods of habitation, separated by more than 1,000 years. All these traces were left by the Kiphian and the Tafarian cultures. Bone ornaments and bone arrowheads were found near harpoons that were used for hunting in nearby waters. Many of the burials were very unusual. One man was buried with his head stuck in a pot. Another rested on the remains of a turtle shell. We may never know exactly how these people lived and died. The Sahara stubbornly refuses to reveal all its secrets. This video has come to an end, but there are many other videos on the channel available to watch right now. Choose your favorite videos and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye everyone.